You feel very vulnerable. I thought my solution to all my problems was to work longer and harder.
So what drove you to do that? Like, I'm really interested on this.
Yeah, if you're unhappy and you don't do anything about it, you're going to remain unhappy. So I had to make some pretty big decisions in my life.
I'm giving you a big hug as soon as we stand up. G'day guys, welcome back to another episode of Level Up. We are down in Manly today. So Shane and I have been up at 3:30 this morning. We've flown down to Sydney because I've got an incredible opportunity tonight. I'm actually being a guest speaker at Manly Master Builders Manly Warringah. So and the reason I'm able to do that is because of this incredible person sitting here with me today, John Oxley from Sydney Beach Homes. How are you, mate?
Good, Dwayne. How are you?
Excellent. Mate, I've been looking forward to this for a very long time, and I really appreciate the offer that Master Builders has made to come down here and get up and speak in front of people tonight. So that's my mission. Like, I'm absolutely committed to getting in front of as many builders, as many tradies as possible, and just showing everybody that anybody can turn their life around, turn their business around, and be successful.
Yeah.
Just quickly give you a little bit of background. So John and I met about 8 or 9 years ago. If you listen to podcasts all the time, you'd hear the story. Like, that's back when I was doing a little bit of work. I did 3 months with the Builders Coach, and John was part of that coaching program, and I ended up being put into what was called an inner circle group. John was part of that, and yeah, I guess we just hit it off. We had a few conversations, and we've stayed in touch through social media. It would literally be 8 years since I've seen you.
Yeah.
In
for
person.
Sure. Yep, and it doesn't feel like that, but
Yeah.
And I'm surprised this hasn't happened sooner, but here we are.
Yeah, well, we've spoken about it. We've talked about it a lot.
We
but
have.
It just doesn't happen.
Yeah, we have. I feel like we're on very similar pathways.
Yeah.
But, you've definitely 10x'd it.
Well, mate, it's the only way. You got to look. I would have. Everyone knows by now. Like, I just would have kept going round and round in circles if I hadn't pushed myself. Like, you need that consistency. You need that drive. But like, John's got an incredible story, and we've got a lot to talk through. But like, can you give us a little bit of background? Like, obviously you got Sydney Beach Homes, which is an amazing company. Like, you guys, check them out. They build incredible homes. How did you become a builder, or what drove you to be a builder?
Yeah, I can honestly say that at the age of 8, my interests were peaked then. Lived in a little quiet cul-de-sac in Avalon, and a guy was building his own house in the street a few doors up, and I introduced myself, and he was
At 8 years old.
At 8 years old, like, yeah, dead set had plastic tools and thongs and whatever, and he kind of just took me under his wing. It was quite remarkable. The guy ended up, he was Bob Ryan, who did a talkback show, building show on the ABC, and incredible patience for him to allow me to work on his site after school and on weekends and stuff for a couple of years. And yeah, that I think was really, that seed had been planted then. And fast forward, went through to HSC, and then almost took over my dad's business, which is a nets and ropes business that had been established for over 100 years. So his great-grandfather had started it. And I was the youngest of 5 siblings, and the others hadn't been interested, and so I kind of...
Gee, a lot of pressure there.
Yeah, a bit of pressure. It wasn't something I was overly interested in doing, and probably 6 months after school of working there, I just said, look, I can't do this anymore, and I started an apprenticeship, which was hard because it was sort of halfway through the year. So what I did was I wrote letters to a lot of builders on the northern beaches. I think I got one response because I was at TAFE, but they said, look, you can't keep going with TAFE unless you get a job as a carpenter. And then I was actually working at my dad's factory at Ingleburn, which is miles away. It's like an hour and a half away down south.
What made you think of writing letters to people?
Look, I just think it's a nice way to introduce yourself to people. But I took it to the next level. There was a guy building some factories across the road from my dad's work, and I just wandered over the road and introduced myself to this bloke, and he was a big German guy, and he was building this factory, units with his super, and he also had a petitioning company. And I just said, how you going? Look, I'm looking for an apprenticeship. And he just, righto, mate, I appreciate you've been up front. And he said, righto, turn up to this job in Chatswood on Monday, and you can start.
And that was it.
That was it, and it wasn't the most exciting work. It was commercial, working with steel studs and frames and petitioning and gyprocking and stuff. But it was an introduction to the building game, and I kept pursuing. I wanted to do the carpentry. That was my passion, and had my feelers out. I think there was another employer who was used to do refurbishment of schools and stuff. So I was with him 6 months, a local builder.
Yeah.
That was boring. That was just rehanging doors and fixing, termite damaged floors, but still an experience.
Yeah.
And then I ended up with a local builder in the cottage industry who was a craftsman. It was just him and me for the rest of the duration of my apprenticeship. And he was a cabinet maker by trade, so he was super fussy about
attention to detail.
He would allow me to spend a day to hang a door to get it right.
I think it's important for younger people to hear this, because so many people get stuck at jobs that aren't getting them where they want to go. And I did the same. I had 2 bosses during my time, because the first boss wasn't really, at the time, I didn't think he was giving me what I needed, and so I moved on to another one, and I'm glad I did, because the first boss was all very custom, architectural, one-off homes, and then the second one was actually volume work. So I had the detail, and then the volume guy got my speed. So I think you got to
different experiences.
Yeah, if you don't have, either you need to get that experience during your apprenticeship, or when you finish your apprenticeship, you need to go and subby to different builders. I feel like a lot of our industry is losing a lot of craftsmen because they're doing these apprenticeships where, and it doesn't matter, like plumbing, plastering, whatever, like you get plumbing apprentices that work for big companies, and they're in a crew, and all they do is under slabs, or all they do is rough ends, or you get a plasterer that only does sheeting or only does setting, or you get a carpenter that only does framing. They don't get that wide variety of skills. They don't get to know their full trade.
No, I agree with that. And, 3 years of a carpentry apprenticeship completed, and then a 4th year in the trade. And then I actually had a year off travelling. My old man was into yachts, and he bought a yacht in Finland and couldn't afford to get it delivered back to Australia. So he sent my brother and I over to sail it back, which was an incredible experience.
That's unreal.
9 months.
Had you done shit like that before?
Oh, look, he'd always had boats, and I used to get dragged out on. I didn't love it.
Yeah, but going across oceans is...
Oh, it was incredible. Coming that distance. My older brother was 25 at the time. I just turned 21. And
holy shit.
Yeah, that was a pretty cool experience to share with my brother, but also to, there's, I think most of the beautiful places in the world are on a harbour somewhere.
I know we're here to talk about building, but you said Finland.
Finland, yeah.
So where did you have to go? I assume you had to sort of hug land for a certain time and then make crossings and...
Yeah, good question. We went through the Kiel Canal through Germany, which was an experience, and then went sort of through the North Sea to Southampton, and then across the Bay of Biscay down to Portugal. And the plan was, my brother had set a course to go right into the Mediterranean and through the Suez Canal, so that's probably the shortest way to get to Australia. And talk about bad timing, we'd got to Gibraltar, which is at the mouth of the Mediterranean, and the Gulf War had broken out. That was well and truly underway, and Bob Hawke had sent 3 frigates, which pretty much condemned the Australian flag. There was stories of fishing vessels getting shot out of the water by Iraqi aeroplanes and stuff. So it was a very real threat. We got as far as Tunis, North Africa, which is French-speaking but Muslim mostly.
Yeah.
And got a reasonably hostile reception there. So my brother somehow, at a young age had a hell of a lot of experience sailing, decided we'd go back out and do a double Atlantic crossing. So across to Rio to Cape Town, and then from Cape Town to Melbourne through the Southern Ocean, which was, I'd been reading books about it, they measured waves of 200 feet down there and ships getting snapped in half. And because you've got the westerlies blowing around Antarctica and the waves don't hit anything, so they just keep getting bigger and bigger, Not always like that, but I think 33 days from Cape Town to Melbourne at sea, and it was cold. We had a couple of snowfalls, and, we're taking Castle Lager beer, which is the South African beer, out of the cupboard, frosty, so it was cold. And we got knocked down a couple of times. that was pretty terrifying. But it was a strong boat.
Like what size boat are we talking like?
It was 53 feet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But still, that's not huge when you're out in those oceans.
It was funny, Will's all about statistics, but I think he said something like, we're closer to the space station than anyone else on the planet right now, and you feel very vulnerable. I think there are a couple of times there that I thought I've had enough, but I think, talk about resilience in owning a business and what have you. I think getting through that was important to do.
Yeah.
It's not like I could have stepped off anyway, but so that was an experience.
But life's made of experiences, isn't it? Like, you've got to really appreciate, like, I think we get so caught up in living lives and we're always wanting to get somewhere else that a lot of the time, like, we don't, like, you're probably getting more out of that now, remembering that experience and what you went through and what you thought were, than at the time you took it for granted.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think that a lot of the stress and anxiety that we build up in ourselves is worrying about things that we don't have or want.
Yeah, that haven't happened yet. And you just have to appreciate not having much. Yeah.
And being happy in that state.
Yeah.
Anyway, we certainly went down a rabbit hole there.
No, but I really get a lot out of, and I think the listeners will as well. Like, you've got to, I think building, like, or trade, the construction industry is so relatable to so many different things. And like you just said, like, it's building resilience, just like running a building business or a carpentry business or whatever it is. But yeah, it's funny. I do think we have to slow down to go forward. Like, we get so caught up in life and things that we don't. It's something I'm very conscious of now. Like, even just only a few weeks ago, I finished a charity rally with one of my mates. We got an old VR Commodore, which
The shit box.
Well, it makes me feel old because the car was 30 years old, and when I was growing up and getting my license, like,
Pretty standard.
If your parents had a VR Commodore, like, they were doing well. And now we paid $2,000 for one and took it through the bush.
Yeah.
But like, just, I didn't think it at the time. Like, during the rally, I actually thought, shit, I want to do more of these, but I might try maybe a variety bash or something next time. And I thought, this is just too full on, like 6:30 breakfast, 8 o'clock driver's brief, 170 cars, 9, 10 o'clock most days if you're the back team by the time you get on the road, 600 Ks on shit roads. Like, there was teams that were breaking down during the day and then not getting into camp until 10, 11. Like, there was one night where teams were rolling into camp at 1 and 2 in the morning. But I've been back from that 2 weeks now, and it was unbelievable. Like, the people we met, the times we had, and even though you're in an older car driving on shit roads through the middle of nowhere, the experience was, like, it just gave you time. There was no reception for 5 days. Like, it just gave you time to really sit and think.
Yeah.
And just to appreciate, even if you, like, let's be honest, even in Australia, even if you have fucking $1,000, like, we're in the luckiest country in the world.
That's true.
And you can be or have or do whatever you want. Like, but yeah, we'll get back to your building.
So then 3 years of 3 nights a week post trade.
Yeah.
And
so did you subby? Like, did you come back and go subby?
The minute I got my carpenter's license, I quit my job.
Yeah.
There was no question that I went to boarding school, so I was fiercely independent and just felt, like I had to break the chains off, and I had no job to go to. I put an ad in the Manly Daily, local rag, and got my first job and made a meal of it. And I remember the lady said, "Oh, you were the cheapest of 12 quotes." And I just thought, oh, well, this is the start of something bad. And, but learnt stuff, and I was just enjoying the work.
Yeah.
I think for 25 years I was probably flying by the seat of my pants. The only thing that kept me going was the passion and
That's what we all do, isn't it?
Yeah.
Like, we all get into it for the passion of being a plumber, being a sparky, being a builder, and the stress of the business, like, takes over that passion, like, very quickly. Yeah,
I think we absolutely all, we're all technicians to some degree, but what that leads us into, when you become a business person, you've got skills there that you don't even know about, that you need to know. And that was me to a T. I think there was certainly a sort of boom bust for me style of working. I wouldn't know how much money I'd made until the accountant told me and all this sort of stuff. And there was a complete ignorance of I don't know how I just kept going, renovating people's homes and making them more wealthy and paying for it in the end.
Yeah. But even what you just said then, like we all rely on someone else telling us how well we're doing. And knowing what I know now, it's absolutely crazy. But like, you literally put your heart and soul into what you do, and then you don't understand the business side of things, so you completely rely on whatever you're doing, 3 months checkups. Or I know, like back in the day, I was doing it once a year, and like you rely on that one meeting a year for someone to sit in front of you and go, "Oh, here's all your numbers. You made a bit of money." Like, why the fuck would we not be doing these checks more often and knowing our numbers?
It was when the penny dropped for me. I think it was about the time that. So I'd been through a couple of rough patches, and I look at, and this all translates in, as you well know, to unhappy family life. I thought my solution to all my problems was to work longer and harder. So that meant that I was less present, and I'll go into the end result of that has ultimately been the breakdown in my marriage. There's obviously other contributing things, but it certainly hasn't helped. And it's hard to not feel accountable and guilty about all of that. But I had my business partner now, Jono. He gave me a couple of jobs when I was quiet. He worked for a mid-tier construction company, and that got me out of a bind, And then he had some challenging times himself. I think that in that world, they get their pound of flesh from you. And he had very similar work ethic to me, and, thought working harder and longer was the solution to everything.
It's how we brought up, isn't it?
That's
it's how we brought up.
Oh, yeah.
Like, I'm sure you were told growing up, like, that's all my dad, my uncles, everyone drummed into me, like, and even my bosses.
Yeah, there wasn't a lot that my dad imparted onto me, but that was certainly one of the things. Anyway, so he, we've all been in that position where he knew he'd had enough, and there was telltale signs there of that. I won't go into it, but he rang me and said, "Look, I've left this company, and is there any opportunity for me to come and work for you?" And I didn't even hesitate. Like I knew the calibre of person he was.
Yeah.
And we.
So how long ago is this? When?
That was 2015, say.
Yeah.
We'd also known each other quite well through our local surf club, so it wasn't like I didn't know him. We'd known each other for 20 years at that point.
Yeah.
So quality human being, and anyway, he started running a job for me, and very quickly could see that coming from that commercial background had the skills that I didn't have.
Yeah.
Of how to project manage jobs and program them, and he just couldn't believe the stuff that I was putting up with, subbies not turning up, and that was okay.
Yeah.
As one example, really no systems and processes. I tried my best.
Yeah.
Wasn't enough, and then I don't know. One day he sat me down over coffee and said, "Look, how would you feel about partnering and starting a new venture?" And I went, "Mate, that sounds like a bloody great idea," because I knew he had the skills I didn't have.
Yeah.
And
that's the only way to make a partnership work, isn't it? You've got to have different strengths and weaknesses.
I think so. And so we started with Kurt back then, and spent a lot of time and energy on marketing. I was working out of the front bedroom of our house, and
so what drove you to do that? Like, I'm really interested on this, and I try and dig into it on podcasts, and nobody, I've never had one person yet be able to give me a clear answer, and I can't. Like, when people ask me what was your turning point, like, there's no one thing, but look, what for me, I didn't know how to be the person I wanted to be, which was to build those big, beautiful homes. Like, I was like bashing my head against the wall. And so you were chasing the job, you weren't chasing the client?
I was chasing my dream. He was the mechanism that was going to get me there, because like, all of a sudden I go, okay.
When you say he, the coach?
No, my business partner.
Oh, your business partner.
Yeah. So I had this vision of growing this business and doing these big, beautiful, luxury architectural homes, and I just for the life of me didn't know how to get there. And so having him almost, as you suggested in our earlier chat about accountability partners, it was like, this is what we need to do, Ox. Like, he actually came to me with this plan that he'd put time into. He said, right, we need this, we need to do this, we're going to get out of your bedroom, we're going to get an office, and it's like bang, 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 going to get a business coach. And we just started this journey together, and it's been pretty cool, like.
So Sydney Beach Homes only started 12 months before you were working with Kurt.
Yeah. So we're both builders, in our own rights, and he'd had different experiences, but like coming from that commercial world where dog eat dog, and they train trained him, they coached him,
Yeah.
he knew exactly what needed to happen. So that was really that's the springboard. And then it was exciting, I remember buying our office and signing the paperwork, and then we fitted out our own office space. And I remember sitting and we had these nice desks next to each other, and we were both sort of leaning in our chairs, twiddling our thumbs. What happens now, And then the phone would ring, and then we got an opportunity, and then, okay, we need someone. What's our first employee? And I think it was an office admin. And then we, started getting more work and employing more people. And that was all challenging. And I knew that, okay, this is starting to get real, and I need to educate myself. So I started investing a lot of time into reading and listening to podcasts and what have you. And like literally my
I know you got the big, I love the shirt, mate. Peace, love, cash flow. You got the Cardone shirt on.
well,
Most people know I'm a big fan of Grant.
well, I started hoovering all his stuff up, and as I suggested earlier, went to one of his seminars, and it cost having the courage and a business partner who would support me on that. To invest that amount of money in your own education, I think that's a big stumbling block for most builders and contractors. Not seeing the value in it and thinking, God, that's a lot of money. It's probably a con. I used to tell myself that this has got to be a con, surely. And then you just get caught up in it, and
You think it's a con. I've talked about this a little bit recently. Like, you think it's a con because you hear them telling you things and you think to yourself, it can't be that easy. But it actually is. But where the value is when you sign up to a community or a program or a coach or a mentor, the value is the community and the accountability.
Accountability. So exactly right. If you invest money in something, it means that you're going to put the effort in. And it's funny how we put more value in material things that we haven't got, and we save up for that, like a car or a motorbike or a boat.
I think I figured this out recently, mate. I believe, and this is across everybody, this is not just our industry.
Yeah.
We all chase the shiny objects.
Yeah.
And so I feel like tradies, like, you'll buy the new tool, that gives you a dopamine hit. It's very, very easy these days to get finance. So you'll buy the big $40,000 tool trailer, or you'll buy the jet ski or the motorbike, or like, you don't see any tradies now driving around in a new dual cab that's older than 10 years. And you get that instant gratification. You get the item, you get the dopamine hit, and you feel fantastic. But then when you invest in yourself, whether it's personal development or business development, you get stuck in and you start to see results and you get that dopamine hit, but then you learn that to keep the business successful, you have to keep working on it. Whereas all these other things you get, and it's there. You buy the new dual cab, it's there every day. You sit in it, you feel proud, you show off. Like, look at me, I'm in my big jacked up truck. But when a lot of people realise that, like, 3 months in, they've implemented things, they've had success, they've turned the business around, and then they realise, shit, this is actually ongoing. I need to keep doing this. So many people back off, and because the shiny object starts to become dull, because they realise it's not something that's instant. Like, personal development, business development never stops. Like, it's something you got to keep doing. Like, I'll never stop till the day I die, I believe. I'm addicted to it, but that's because I see the results from the more effort I put in, the more money I spend, the more time I spend, everything flourishes. My business, my relationships, my kids, like. So yeah, it's funny how the world works, but like you just said, like, we all think it's a con, but it's not.
Yeah, it was kind of.
Some of them are. There probably is some cons out there.
Well, look, I felt embarrassed, to be honest, that it took me that long. I probably had mostly my wife, in my ear about it.
About getting help, or the amount of money you're spending on it, or
no, just she would have to have been one of my biggest mentors. Self-aware and emotionally intelligent, and
we need to listen to women more.
100%.
They have the answers, and we
anyway, the business kind of got bigger, and probably it was only 18 months into it. We needed to get a bigger office. We got an incredible opportunity to build a beautiful home out at Whale Beach, and we're just pinching ourselves that we're doing jobs of that stature and very architectural. And it was, look, they presented challenges, and we were up for it.
So what sort of dollar value? Like, I know you've done some big jobs. Like what?
Yeah, look, you're sort of getting up to the 6 million plus, and and above. I guess at some point, well, I tell you what wasn't on the business plan was COVID. We had a couple of big jobs running, and that time I remember when no one knew what was going on in the world. It was a lot of nervous energy being expended at that time, and I remember having crises meetings with Jono in the office about how we're going to manage it all. And I have to say the government did handle it very well to get everyone through.
It was it was a very nervous time there for a little while, like that. So COVID happened literally 2 months after I signed up to one of Grant's personal programs, and I was like, "Fuck me, we've just invested a shitload of money."
Yeah. Did that keep going though?
Yeah, it kept going, but mate, he so the States had already started, was bad, and Australia didn't really start shutting down and talking about the way it was going to go for a couple of months, because we'd been to Vegas, we went to the 10x Growth Conference, then we went and did some business stuff, and then we went to San Francisco for 2 weeks, and while we're there it was all starting to happen, and then we come back to Australia, and literally within 2 months of coming back it had started affecting people. I think the day we landed in Australia had its first case, and then it just, over 2 months, it just started ramping up. And so we'd just invested a shitload of money with Grant Cardone, and we were so the week, I think it was a Friday. The Friday they announced in Australia that they were going to be shutting all open homes, they were going to be putting all these strict restrictions on job sites, was the exact same day that we were doing our final cleaning on our personal development units that we'd just done, and they were having their first open home on that Saturday. So we had all this private lending, and we'd invested all this money in Grant, and I had a few moments there, I was like, holy fuck.
Yeah.
We cannot cash flow this business for more than a few months if they do this. And the thing that got me through COVID, mate, was Grant was doing these emergency Zooms, and so he,
it was good, wasn't it?
Yeah, and so this group that we're in, he basically, the group got sent an email, and he's like, I will give you everything you need to get through COVID. And I was jumping on Zooms because of, obviously American time at 1 and 2 in the morning for 3 and 4 and 5 hours, and just hearing, he would just G us up.
Yeah.
You have to expect the unexpected.
He was very vocal, wasn't he?
Yeah. And I just listened to him, mate, and I implemented it, and we didn't get through it unscathed. We lost a lot of money, which I know you did as well, but we definitely got through it. I believe we're where we are now because of, it wasn't just him. I was doing some other coaching at the time as well, but I just took everything they said on board and just fucking righto, if this is going to happen, then it ain't going to fail because of my efforts. I'm going to do whatever I can.
Yeah, it's good. And look, straight after things started opening up in Sydney, there was still lockdown LGAs where you couldn't get contractors, and it just meant programs blew out and your profit was just gone, and material price increases. And I remember down locally, you could only buy 3 sticks of timber a day. It was, we literally had our labour in the truck just going around all the timber yards picking up sticks of LVLs and stuff. It was a debacle. Yeah, on top of that, we had the wettest year in Sydney's history, which was diabolical, and you just sort of had to roll with it. But I guess where I was going with all of that was you kind of weathered the storm, and you learn a bit more about yourself during those times. There's no question that challenges, I feel, are growth opportunities, and worrying about your team and their mental health and what have you. And I guess, that was a little while ago now, but I think then, there was a change of government, and then what tends to be the case from my experience is that with a change of government, you get a whole lot of different policy changes. And it seems to me that the current government seem to think that the employer pays for everything. There's the whole closing the loophole stuff. But anyway, it just adds extra challenges to running a business.
Yeah.
And managing employee expectations, and so the company was just sort of getting by but not doing great. I think growth is a cost.
So when is this? I know you had a period there where you like we've spoken, that you really knuckled in on your overheads. Like was that around this time? Or was this
no,
after
look,
that?
that's sort of probably a year ago. There was, I would say, there would be 17. Maybe June last year, 17 in the team, and
Yeah.
we.
So I'm jumping the gun a bit.
That's okay. It's all relevant. I think doing those big homes. I've come to believe that there's a bit of ego in that. Probably a lot of ego in that.
A lot of ego, mate. I did the same thing.
Yeah.
Like the first 10 years of my business, I chased the jobs instead of finding my ideal client.
Yeah. So that what we've been doing in recent times is meeting the drop in demand, and certainly the news was all about builders' insolvencies and look, I sympathise with a lot of those companies that were on fixed contracts during that tough time, and it was no wonder that they came unstuck. What I will say is, Jono and I have sort of worked through that. And as a business owner, I don't believe that there's complete unawareness that you're heading in that direction. It doesn't just happen.
Yeah.
And
But up until that, like COVID was a massive wake-up call as well, because there was so many people in our industry, like suppliers, builders, tradies, that would just head down, bum up, chasing the next job and just completely reliant on turnover. And turnover means nothing if you're not making money. And COVID really highlighted how so many businesses trade insolvent and just don't understand their running cost.
Yeah. Yeah. The home warranty scheme in this state is in a pretty poor state as well. Like, I'm members of both HIA and MBA, and I sort of feel like I don't know why we all have to endure something that's broken. It's kind of you're at the.
Well, we don't. We need to run our own race. Like we need to. Yeah. That's what all this is about. Like people breaking the old-fashioned ways the industry operates, and it's happening. Like we have. Through Live Like Build, like and the podcast, like we have thousands of builders and tradies now that are putting time, energy, and money into themselves.
It is good, mate. Yeah, you're doing a great job there. I think just going back to the education that we probably had in the government's wisdom of trying to get more builders on paper, fast tracking qualifications, I see as a massive issue, and
it's huge.
And it's frustrating being in it that bureaucrats have kind of created this problem for everyone. There's no accountability at that level, that's for sure.
So just about in there on that, John, like this is something I'm really passionate about, and I definitely stir people up when I say this, but there is a very big difference between a tradie worker and like someone that sits in has some sort of office job or has a uni degree and those types of things. And like I firmly believe, I don't care how long people want to argue with me, like if you don't understand, like we think very differently, we learn very differently, we react, we respond, like we are very different and we interpret things very differently. And I think because a lot of the people that are making these decisions and these calls and these legislations haven't been in our industry, haven't worked in it, don't understand it. They don't understand how different we are. And so like it's not an industry where you can throw people at it and they can pick it up easily. Like you would know, like you do your 4 years training, you don't know a quarter of what you need to learn. Yeah. Whereas, and like what I'm getting at is like, I feel with a lot of the other side of things, like, I don't know how, like sitting in an office or doing an office type job is a very different learning environment. You can sit beside people at desks, you can share computer screens, you can give examples, so a lot of it's like numbers, writing, those types of things. Like you can't do that on site. Like on site, you physically have to do things and cut timber and measure and like I don't know what. Like I just feel they don't understand the difference.
Well, spending one day in the private sector would be a good start. I don't think they have that experience, but I agree with what you say there. That in particular builders I'm talking about right now, there is an incredible array of things you need to be across.
Yeah. I guess to wrap that up, what I'm probably trying to get at is you can't learn what a tradie or a builder does by reading a textbook. Like you can't. I don't care how many times you've read it. Like you can't.
Yeah, I do get the sense that everyone's in a hurry these days, and they're missing the point because to be a craftsman at the top of your game, it's time. And, you know, a lot of my mates' sons are coming to the age where they're leaving school and what have you, and ask us, you know, what our advice would be. And Jono and I feel the same way about this, that why don't you just finish what you started at school? Like, you can do these pre-apprenticeship courses where you're doing school, you're doing TAFE, and you're on site as well. And I just don't see that anyone's a winner there. I understand it.
Yeah.
That, you know, trying to encourage people to get a trade. It just seems to me that you're starting, you know, leaving year 10 or whatever. I just think that extra couple of years of maturity at school, finish that, do the best you can. Doesn't matter if you pass or fail, just do the time, and then move on to the next thing.
Yeah, yeah.
You know?
You got to have one or the other. You can't be have. Yeah, I agree. I don't know if they do it down here in Queensland. I know, in New South Wales. I know at home there's some private trade schools now where, like, you do your 11 and 12. Like, you get your English, your maths, and those types of things, but you're there to learn how to be a tradie. I think that has legs.
And that just the you know, shortening of all the qualifications. I mean, it's even with the amount of time that I spent back then, the 3 years post-trade, 3 nights a week was a big graft, but still, like you suggested, it's a fraction of what you need to know.
Yeah.
And there is this, like, once you get your qualification, you know, you're high-fiving and you think that that's it. And that was probably me for a lot of years, learning on the job and not seeing the value in putting that extra time into, you know, the continuing professional development, which is a joke in its own right, because no one's ever checked whether I do continued professional development.
Mate, CBD points should be compulsory.
Compulsory.
Do you have them down here?
We do, but you just got to sign it when you reapply for your licence that you've done it. No one checks it. It's just a box ticking exercise, right? Yeah. So I'm very encouraged by the number of younger builders coming to those MBA events that we hold monthly.
It's huge, mate. I feel it's really exciting times. We just finished, we call them a launch with Live Like Build 2 days ago. And so the last 2 launches we've done really big numbers, but last time it excited me, but this time it's just off the charts, because I think we've got over 3 dozen people that have come in. Like, there's big numbers all up, but we've got over 3 dozen young. So we've got 3 dozen odd people that are either carpenters, supervisors, currently doing their builder's license, or just got it. And the reason I'm so excited about that is because these guys are taking the initiative to learn the business side of a building business before they've even really put their foot in the door. And I just think, man, like, if you put in the effort now and you get all your documents, all your systems and processes in place, in your head, you understand what you need to do. Not only are you going to run an incredible business, you touched on it before, you're going to have a lot better home life, because let's face it, like, how many businesses in the building industry, the business takes over the relationship, and you're going to have a financially stable future. Like, it's it blows my mind. I just want to run up and give them all hugs. Like, good on you.
Yeah, it's funny. I think back and I just wish someone had collared me and, you know, taken me under their wing. I guess you got to be open to it.
But would you have taken it?
Yeah, well, I don't know about that, but
because that's, people ask me that all the time, and I like, now it's easy to sit and say,
no, you got to be in the right frame of mind. And I'm just obviously slow on the uptake, but my elder brother's a maths professor, so I think I got the shallow end of the gene pool. But yeah, I think, you know, I'm here now, and you know, one of the things I wanted to touch on with you, if it's okay, Dwayne, is that in the process of you know, hoovering up heaps of books, I think I was going through 40 books a year, and just couldn't get enough, really. Learning about myself, and it kind of frightened me, because everything I read, I thought, shit, there's so much more I need to know. But part of that, what that allowed me to do was to try and help the team and put some time and energy into them and growing the business the right way and nurturing clients and the whole bit. And we had a couple of mental health, you know, challenges in the team. And then, you know, I was having some marital challenges myself, and probably about this time last year, I started getting these dark thoughts, you know, and I know enough about it. I actually did a mental first aid course with the MBA just to give me a little bit more understanding of it if it happened to one of our team. And all of a sudden, this bloody black dog turned up at my doorstep, and it knocked me for 6. I thought, shit, how did that happen?
So is this all snuck up through all obviously dealing with COVID and
Yeah, look, it's
a couple of years of that? Like,
look, I think I can't put my finger on exactly the issues. I think what I got to learn through a number of counselling sessions was that how we're made up is a result of how we were brought up.
100%.
And boarding school at 12 didn't help because I lost my primary female influence in my mother. And the other thing was that I remember I was very distinct about, look, I'm not keen on going to boarding school. And my mother and father said, look, it's okay, you just try it. If you don't like it, you can come home. I said, okay, that's fair enough. And I reckon not every night, but a lot of nights a week, I'd ring them in tears saying, look, I'm done. And it just fell on deaf ears. And so I just went, okay, I've got to deal with this myself. So I grew apart from my mum and dad pretty quickly, and they, which was a bit sad, really. I've got my kids, and I can't understand it how they could easily dismiss me like that. But so I think that sort of carried through into my marriage, those challenges in communication. Just because I was shut down to, I literally had the emotional intelligence of a 12-year-old for most of my life, I think, in terms of dealing with females and in relationships and stuff. So that was all very interesting in hindsight, I suppose. And anyway, so I just had to, I think I had the foresight when that happened to lean on some mates and get some help. Went to my GP. Jono was incredible. I'll try not to get emotional about it, but,
I appreciate you talking about it, mate, because I think this happens in every single person in our industry.
Yeah.
Like, it has to be spoken about.
Yeah. So that kind of crept up on me, and Jono was amazing as a friend and a business partner, and, in supporting me through that. So there was a combination of things, and there was the marriage breakdown, and so I'm separated now, and then the business downturn, and then my old man decided he'd pass away. That was a couple of months ago. So even though I wasn't close to him, it was still a significant life event, and I remember being at his bedside in the nursing home, and he wasn't in good shape. I could tell he was on the way out, and I think they call it the death shakes or whatever, and he was trying to talk to me and he couldn't, and we're both frustrated about that, and because I was interested to see what he had to say at that final moment. But what I was most saddened by with that event was the life that I didn't get to have with him, and it kind of brought that to a head. But anyway, that I think, where am I going with all of that? I just think that if I'm completely honest with you, I'm completely at peace with everything that's happened. I feel like I've been doing a lot of reading of the Stoics, and stumbled across that in a book and thought, why the hell isn't this stuff not taught at school?
Oh, it's incredible the way they do things
and think about things, So
what got you through that, mate? Like what? Like it's like obviously
Look,
you've got good people around you, but like I think you've got to make some decisions.
It's mindset. You talk about mindset a lot. Things happen because of you, and if you're unhappy and you don't do anything about it, you're going to remain unhappy. So I had to make some pretty big decisions in my life, which wasn't something I planned for. But here I am, different stage in my life, and it actually came down to self-care in the end. I think part of the dark thoughts I was having was a result of all the guilt and how have I stuffed this up, And men need to get beyond that, because ultimately it comes down to you personally. And I got to the point where, and I'm sure my kids won't hate me for this, but I didn't give a fuck about anyone but myself. They know I love them to death, and but it was self-preservation at that point.
But as selfish as that sounds, like you have to be like that, because you cannot be the best person you can be for your family and the people around you if you're not.
Oh, 100%. Like I knew that wasn't a solution to the problem. That you take that off the table, because we've had it happen in the family, we've had it happen in the community, and you might have read this passage in a book by someone that said, if you are considering suicide, consider that you've got a what do you call it, a vest on, like a, what do you call them, like a
Bomb.
and you get 100 of your closest friends and family in the room and then detonate it, because that's what you're doing. You're having an effect, a ripple effect on everyone else around you. And it's a real shame, and that it's a spontaneous thing to do, and it can be avoided. There's plenty of people out there can help you. And one of the most remarkable things I learnt in that course I did was it's okay to ask someone, are you thinking about killing yourself?
Well, it's actually Are You OK Day today.
Is it really?
As we're recording this podcast, but
there you go.
Yeah,
I'm okay.
Yeah.
Are you okay?
I'm giving you a big hug as soon as we stand up. But I guess for people listening, like this is a very hard subject, and if you are having trouble, like there is a lot of people out there, like the TX boys, the guys from Trainmut do an incredible job, the Lifeline, all those things. So make sure you do reach out for help. But it's, man, I got goosebumps. I got bloody tearing up just hearing your story. But it's amazing how much, like I talk about this a bit because I want everybody to work on it, because it is incredible how much we let the way we're brought up affect and control the rest of our lives. And I've said it a lot, like I firmly believe like there'd be 99.9% of people on this planet that just are not living their own life. They're stuck with trauma and thoughts and beliefs and just shit from experiences and people that they've been associated with growing up.
Absolutely. And one of the things that the philosophers 2,000 years ago would say is that the one thing that is in your control is your thoughts and mind. And like it said that, not even your body, you don't really have a control over your body. You can get sick, you can get cancer, and it's not, it happens, right? So that's quite powerful. That call it indifference. That if you allow things to upset you and you get stressed about it, well, that's your choice.
Yeah.
That's massive. If you can flick that switch and think that whatever happens to you is not,
Grant,
poor
same.
me. Yeah.
Like, nothing happens to you, everything happens because of you. Like that has stuck with me from the first time I heard it. And do you think people, so many people I think they are taking responsibility and ownership, but they're not. Like they might be taking ownership of one little piece over here, but there's 10 other pieces over here that they're blaming everybody else for. I like that you touched on your kids there. I just knowing what I know now, my girls are 11 and 13, one's about to turn 14. We're just letting them do what they want to do. Like we want them to just be themselves. Like we're not forcing anything on them at all. Because I've just through the breath work and the bloody kinesiology and this all the weird shit that I have a crack at now, it's incredible the shit that I've hung on to that I just don't, and that shit that we're holding on to is what's giving us back pain or leg pain or trauma in our bodies or sickness. So the quicker we can get rid of stuff like that and be more open to talking about and sharing these experiences, the better for everybody. But
it's interesting. I think one of the benefits of what you're doing, and what's probably helped get me through is being of service. Heavily involved in the surf club, but also happy to impart experiences onto younger builders. Like I feel like that's creates real purpose.
Yeah.
And if you're feeling sorry for yourself, that by just an act of kindness, like something quite simple, is enough to to turn the corner and feel a bit more upbeat about the day. And
Yeah, you were saying when John walked in today, I felt embarrassed because he's 11 years older than me and looks like 10 years younger. But you're looking incredible. Like you were saying that fitness has played a huge role in getting you through all this stuff.
Yeah, So I rode surf boats for a long time, and I think movement is incredibly important. And it's funny, the whole compounding effect of just daily habits, and it's something that I've not ever let go. But one of the things that Jono and I have shared together is the surf boat rowing. And you get your mates in a boat, and it's pretty cool that you're pushing your body to the extreme, that you can share those experiences. And actually, it's more about mateship than the competition side of it.
Yeah.
The camaraderie in the surf club's incredible. It's like an extended family for me, and my kids went up through nippers and what have you. But a lot of older, wiser souls in that club that are like surrogate fathers. I didn't really have that. So and Coop, my son, and my daughter Cameron haven't had, a grandfather.
Yeah.
So that's allowed them to have a bit of that, in the surf club, I feel. You got the older people nurturing the younger people.
Yeah.
And I feel like I'm kind of there now all of a sudden. It's happened very quickly, but becoming an older member of the club, and it's nice to be involved and help and, be part of the community in that way.
And is that what's kept you, is that the fitness you do? Is like the training to be able to do that and get more involved with that?
Yeah, look, I just like the idea of being able to do anything I want physically, whether it's surfing or rowing or running or swimming or, and that'll pay dividends in the future, I hope.
Oh, 100%.
That's the plan.
We've got to keep active, eh?
Yeah. Got a lot of mates I went to school with who haven't kept up with, and I worry about that because you only get one life, and it needs to be a good one.
Yeah. So, mate, where to? We'll start to wrap it up a bit, but you've been through a lot in the last 3 or 4 years. What's happening now?
Look, so we just simplified things. I'm back on the tools. I touched on that before the podcast, which I actually love doing. That, peeling it back to basics, that is actually my passion.
So Jono's running the business.
He's been working hard, with all the things that you need to do to downsize, making sure that we're still got jobs coming through the door, and it's kind of evolving again into whatever it'll be. But I think the experiences that we've had, there's no regrets there. We're very proud of what we achieved, and you're leaving a real legacy there of a home that you built. That's the family are happy to live in it, and with the outcome. So I think we're peeled it back to basics. Feel like we can still deliver great service and quality without all the added stresses that have gone into the last 6 years or 8 years.
Size and turnover mean absolutely nothing, don't they?
Not really, no. It's quality of life, and making sure, like you talk about what gets you out of bed, and I get out of bed because I love what I do, and I'm excited about what the day brings, and can I leave it in a better place that I've left it the day before, sort of thing. So just being very conscious of my interactions with people and how I treat people and speak to them, and you don't know what's going on in people's lives. If you get a contractor that's a bit off one day, rather than get the shits about it, have a conversation with him. And men are pretty hopeless with communication. When you say, "G'day, mate, how you going?" "Yeah, good." It's just a default thing. Yeah. I was grabbing a coffee a little while ago, local coffee shop, and this guy I know of, I've seen him around a bit, but we're not close, but he came up to me and he said, "Can I give you a hug?" And I said, "Absolutely." And he started crying, and he goes, "My dog died and I've had a shit time with the missus." And I said, "Well, mate, that's all good, it's pretty cool when you can be that vulnerable, and you don't feel worse for it, that's for sure."
Yeah.
So I'm big on hugging mates, I don't care if they feel uncomfortable about it. I think it's pretty cool that blokes can have a close relationship like that, and having a handful of people that you can talk to about anything's been helpful as well.
Yeah, unreal, mate. So just to wrap it up, what advice for people out there listening, maybe people that are going through some tough times and thinking about throwing the towel in when it comes to their trade or building business, what advice you got?
Look, I think at grassroots level, don't be too proud to put your hand up. I mean, in surf life saving, a lot of blokes drown in the water because they don't put their hand up because they're too proud to admit that they're in fucking trouble, right? So don't think that you're a failure. Actually, in fact, it takes a lot more courage to put your hand up or make the phone call and ask someone. I am really delighted with the number of younger builders coming through, the master builders locally, who take the time out of their week with their young families to come and educate themselves. And here's some old dogs, tell some stories that may or may not save them some money or a headache, or you're not alone. You're not alone. And I love that's what you're doing, is you're just putting it out there big time, yeah, I'm proud of what you've done, mate, and it's been a really good friendship. So I hope we can keep going with it.
Yeah, no, definitely, mate. Definitely, it'll only get stronger. But mate, really appreciate your time and appreciate your vulnerability and sharing your story and your journey. Yeah, absolute pleasure, and I'm really looking forward to tonight.
Sounds good.
But
appreciate it.
Yeah, look, thanks guys for listening. Remember, we've got the new website now. Go and check out our merch. Get on board, because we want everyone in Australia wearing Level Up. It's got keep smashing it out on the back, because that's what we're doing. We're putting this podcast out there to share these types of stories and just help people in this industry realise that there's always a better way to do things. So look forward to seeing you on the next one. Like, subscribe, and yeah, have a great day.
Are you ready to build smarter, live better, and enjoy life? Then head over to livelifebuild.com/elevate to get started.
Everything discussed during the Level Up podcast with me, Dwayne Pearce, is based solely on my own personal experiences and those experiences of my guests. The information, opinions, and recommendations presented in this podcast are for general information only, and any reliance on the information provided in this podcast is done at your own risk. We recommend that you obtain your own professional advice in respect to the topics discussed during this podcast.